Joining me now is Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen. He'll be one of our keynote speakers at our fall conference coming October 3rd and 4th. And the full details are at worldviewstore.com. He joins me tonight to talk about a very disturbing study, and that has to do with we are headed apparently toward an assassination culture. That's one of the new studies I talked about earlier this week. Nope, not that, guys. I'll show. I'm trying to find it real quick. But an assassination culture. Here it is, guys. I found it. And I want to ask him about this. And I want to ask him what he thinks about this fitting into what he's talked about, which is maybe not a civil war, but a civil breakup. The country breaking up into parts. Clearly, we can't all agree and get along. We used to have fundamental things we agreed upon as Americans, regardless of political party, right? People can't even agree now that patriotism is a good thing, that parental authority and parental rights is sacred. Colorado, they just passed a bill. They're gonna try to take away children from parents that don't affirm their transgenderism. I mean, we used to have basics, sacred basics. We don't have those anymore. I frankly don't know how we survive as a republic, frankly. I think we are headed to a breakup. I think it's probably necessary. I hate to say it, but I don't see another way out of it. And I certainly don't want to see a civil war. But now we have a big chunk of the left, a majority of the left thinks that violence is okay. They now call terrorists, of course, freedom fighters. Joining me now is Mark Mitchell. Mark, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, really great to be here. I'm all primed up on this topic because I just did Tim Pool last week. And, you know, the Civil War is his pet issue. So
is it really? I did not know that.
We got into a little bit.
I did not know that.
Oh,
okay.
yeah,
so do you think we're headed to a civil war or just a civil breakup?
Americans think that it's increasingly likely that we're headed to a civil war. The last time we asked it was 43% of U.S. likely voters that said at least somewhat likely. That number's up from, I think, the 31% before. I think we might have asked that back in the Trump administration. So basically, it was an effect of the Biden administration that in the teens, like increase in people think we're headed towards a civil war. Now, believe it or not, we actually came at it the direction you did, which is, well, what about a national divorce? Because Marjorie Taylor Greene brought that up as a topic back in the spring of 23. And we asked that, and believe it or not, the number's lower. And so there's this idea that, well, people feel that violence is coming. They don't necessarily want it to. 34% approved of national divorce. And because it was the Biden administration, it was conservatives way more than moderates or liberals. A majority of conservatives, 49%, so half of conservatives thought that a national divorce would be a good idea, but it was only 24% of moderates, 17% of liberals. But there's all these other measures that are just off the chart where we're in a context of political violence and fear.
Well, let's go to this poll. I'm sure you're familiar with the Network Contagion Research Institute. And of course, they're talking about an assassination culture. What did you learn from reading their information? I guess murder justification, I guess it's right there. Murder justification, 31%, and 38% of respondents stated would be at least somewhat justified to murder Elon Musk and President Trump, respectively. 38%. These effects were largely driven by respondents that identified as left of center, with 48% and 55% at least somewhat justifying murder for Elon Musk and President Trump, respectively, indicating significantly higher justification for violence against these figures. Then property damage, nearly 40% of respondents stated it's at least somewhat acceptable to destroy a Tesla dealership in protest. This is why we have a free event coming up in Milwaukee at the Waukesha Expo Center. We have over 1,000 people registered. It's our first time to do one of these rallies in 7 years because of the physical violence that was threatened against our conferences. One man doing 7 months in federal prison for terroristic threats against us in person, brandishing weapons. Then Antifa, that was April 2017. April 2018, Antifa and Black Lives Matters and Muslim Brotherhood types and Southern Poverty Law Center types, they were all out on social media calling for people to call our hotel venues and get us shut down. And some of them were making such threats, the venues felt unsafe and pulled our contracts. That's why when we have events, we have to spend a few $1,000s just in security because these people are becoming more and more
unhinged.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. That's where we're at. And it's all this gaslighting. And there's just been so many psychological operations thrown at people in general, and especially the left. We covered on your show the vast divergence between what people who watch MSNBC think and people who watch Fox News. It's like two totally different worlds, two totally different issue sets. The MSNBC people were whipped up into a froth this fall over threats to democracy. And what's kind of crazy is that it almost always goes one way, right? You know, the squattings, the attacks, the burning, some of it's paid, but some of it's literally crazy people that don't have a filter. And it's because they've been taught so long that Donald Trump's Hitler, that countries' democracies being undermined, that they're going to be put into camps, like all this kind of stuff, when in reality, the people who were at most threat of being put into camps in the last 4 years objectively were people who didn't want to take an experimental vaccine. But what's wild is that we asked about this election and whether there would be violence about it after it. And I think the number was 2/3. We asked if how likely is it that there will be a violent reaction if Kamala Harris is elected president? And Democrats, it was, I believe the number was about 2/3, said it was likely. But for the same question with Republicans, if Donald Trump was elected, it was a much lower number, like almost 20 points lower. So the idea is that Democrats think that there is this violent MAGA extremist, and it's all because of January 6th. It's all because of those fake optics. And it's just wild that you have this situation where people look back at the Capitol riot. A lot of them are still, really pained about it. It was a very effective gaslighting operation. And yet at the same time, we have over 60% of Americans who say that it's likely that federal agents provoked the Capitol riot. So it's this mess. And ultimately what it comes down to is people are on different sides of these issues. There's a lot of fog of war. The left thinks that the right is violent. The right is in power right now and controls ostensibly the military and the police. And so you have this group of disaffected people who really just want to be in power. They really want this like cognitive dissonance to end. Because I think they're being jerked on a chain right now. I try to go to Reddit once or twice a week just to look at the mental health. And it's just absolutely crazy how they are glomming on to these psychological operations. This whole Black Monday thing is another really great example. So Jim Cramer, nobody should be listening to him. The guy's like just perennially wrong about everything. But he had an interview on Wednesday on CNBC where he said, next Monday could be like Black Monday, and we're going to see a 26% drop in the stock market or whatever it was, right? And what happened is I went on Reddit subreddit politics over the weekend, and it's like, wow, everybody's talking about this impending Black Monday. And I went to Google Trends and I looked at the search volume for Black Monday. And what's wild is it did not spike at all until Sunday. And so what happened is everybody saved this story up. They all decided that they're going to do a coordinated attack on the American psyche, and they launched it into the Sunday news cycle. They dropped every media outlet dropped a story about Black Monday on Sunday, and you can watch in real time on the Google Trends on like the 1 day data. You can go back and look at Monday, where there's all of this organic search volume for the terms Black Monday. And then literally the New York Stock Exchange bell opens and the search volume falls off. And so they moved on to something else now.
And by the way, I think I have Kramer's clip on this. I've not seen it. I think I just pulled it up while you were talking. I think this is it. Let's see, guys.
If the president doesn't try to reach out and reward these countries and companies that play by the rules, then the 1987 scenario, the one where we went down 3 days and then down 22% on Monday, has the most cogency. We will not have to wait out too long, will we? We'll know by Monday. Fortunately, we had an excellent set of employment numbers today. At least it makes it less likely a crash will necessarily lead to a recession. But if President Trump stays intransigent and does nothing to ameliorate the damage that I saw these last 2 days, I'm not going to be constructive here. I will contain my anger, but only because I lived through 87, and in the end, I came out okay. I was in cash for the crash. I know what this feels like. Oh, and if Europe moves against our fabulous tech companies next week, then I will be furious. That I promise you, because it should not happen.
Okay, I don't know if that's the clip you're referring to or not, but there he is.
Well, it seems like that it might be part of that segment. But the thing is, again, it's like just part of this guy's show, right? He's like evaluating what might happen. And somebody filed it away and said, oh, we're going to use this weekend and everybody's going to run with it. It's like, why did that happen? And I keep coming back to, well, I think maybe people are still coordinating our mainstream media political talking points, because 64% of Americans think that U.S. intel agencies are doing it. But back to that report, I didn't get to read it all, but the numbers exactly fit in with all the other things, right? Where over half of voters thought there would be a violent reaction to this election, no matter who won. And then we've run all those same questions. 20% of Americans think that, yeah, burning down Tesla dealerships is a valid form of protest. We asked about Luigi Mangione and whether it was understandable that he murdered a health executive, a health company, insurance CEO. And 27% said, oh, yeah, it's an understandable reaction to the high cost of healthcare in America. 38% 18 to 39-year-olds, 34% of Democrats. And RMG had a good one this summer, and they found that 28% of Democrats thought it would have been better if the assassin hadn't missed in Butler. And so is it everybody? No, like everybody has fears of violence, but quite frankly, they're more concerned about even the government. We had 72% a year ago thinking that being at least somewhat concerned that we're living in a police state. And that fits exactly with only 30% of people trusting the federal government. So it's this aspect of like this perfect storm of Biden overreach, economic destruction, censorship, and then the way that the violent mobs like almost seem to work hand in glove with the media and the government that people are afraid of. Now, what does that mean? Like, we talked it over of potential likely paths forward. And I disagreed with Tim Pool on his take. He thinks that there's very low likelihood that like local police officers and, would side with the federal government if it ever came down to some kind of constitutional crisis. Now, we've had plenty of constitutional crises, but I disagree with that one.
I disagree. The police will do whatever they're told because they need their paycheck and their pension. They will do whatever they're told. We saw them do it with COVID.
But the question is, who's telling them to do what?
Well, they arrested people during COVID. We have the videos of them arresting people, singing hymns in a church parking lot in Moscow, Idaho, of all places, right? We have video of a cop tasing a woman outside, sitting away from everybody else, outside at her kid's football game because she wasn't wearing a mask. We have video of two cops arresting a store owner who was selling hay and paper towels and other things that the big box stores could sell, but he couldn't. And when he showed, hey, I got a license to sell this, they didn't like it. And the scum wearing the uniforms, and I'm for the police when they abide by their oath, but when they don't, they're scum, and they arrested him. So I don't trust the police by and large. They will do whatever they're told to do. That's human nature to protect their pension and paycheck.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, and it fits with every other institution being co-opted and just doing what the authoritarians tell them to do.
Exactly.
But it's specifically where I think it's the context of what event, specifically now in this, where we're at, would spark some kind of thing that we would all say, oh, like this has changed everything. And the scenario I keep coming up with is one where a state government is at odds with a federal government, okay? And the example I used is, okay, we have Phil Murphy harboring an illegal alien. What happens if the federal government deems that that's, he needs to be indicted or taken into custody for federal law enforcement? The situation you have there is like, okay, where's the friction? Mm-hmm. Is the FBI going to come? Is Murphy not going to turn himself over? Do FBI agents encounter state troopers? And is that a situation where the state troopers, they're not putting their boot on the neck of moms and pops? It's a very different situation.
Yeah, that is a different situation.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the police in Dallas and the Secret Service fighting over the casket of JFK.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Where you get people, huh?
Yeah, no.
Where you get
exactly.
Where you get state and local police and the coroner saying you're not taking his body, and you got the feds saying you are, and these guys now are in a power struggle. So in other words, what you're really talking about isn't, like you said, the police coming against mom and pop, because they'll likely just go against the people. If the police are told to do that, they'll do it. We've seen them do it history time and time and time again. But if you have now two different agencies coming against each other, one a state, one a federal, yeah, that's pretty unknown how that could roll.
Yeah, and it depends on a lot of unpredictable things. Now, I think probably another likely one is like a state legislature goes through the motion of seceding. And I see there, it's like, well, yeah, the cops are their paychecks coming from the new United States of America, whoever is involved in that, right? But then you have, okay, well, that state has National Guard, and what happens to those folks? It gets pretty complicated pretty fast. And I guess there's also the whole situation where people in government are awfully mad at Donald Trump right now. And I think it's because probably if you charted billionaire unhappiness over the last 8 years, it's probably at the peak right now. It's probably at the very peak. People are ripping their hair out in Amazon and Walmart and everything that depends on a global supply chain, right? That's my guess. I'm guessing that phones were melting down all over Capitol Hill because every one of those Republican senators takes in massive amounts of money from big corporations, global corporations, right? And already, 7 Republican senators jumped ship on this. And it's like, well, if the American people think that Trump is being undermined by people in Washington, D.C. that don't have the best interest, like that's another situation. And one where Trump might appeal to the people because he's done that in the past. And so then it's like, okay, well, what does the military do? I think becomes the big question, right? Or what do the Capitol Police do, or whatever, puts us back into a January 6th kind of situation. Like we had good conversations talking through. Ultimately, what it comes down to is you have no idea. Like literally anything can happen now. But I think we're in a period of rapid change, and society's changing too.
That's the key point. The society is changing because we no longer have a society that, as I started out this interview with, based on common ethics, right? Common morals. There's been a collapse of morals, and now we have moral relativism. Well, yeah, if you're not getting your way politically, then killing somebody is acceptable. If you're not getting what you want or don't like something, you can burn their building down. You can destroy property. We've reached a point where, well, the Founding Fathers said this. They said that if you remove a firm belief in the hearts of the people that there is a God, there is a judgment day, there's consequences, and we should all be regulating our behavior through a moral law because there is a moral lawgiver who will judge us in this life or the next. If you remove that, you're going to collapse. The nation cannot operate. And now we have a bill in Colorado. Colorado Democrats passed a bill to codify abortion until birth. Of course, this is again happening around the country. We had the governor of Virginia a few years ago saying we'll make the child comfortable after it's born and then decide what to do it. Infanticide, right? Legal in many, many states, infanticide. And then you have Colorado, by the way, also working on a bill that will prosecute parents. If the parents don't agree, I'm going to see if I can find it here, guys, but I had it up here at one point. If they don't agree with the child's gender affirming, if they don't do this, here we go. No, that's that one. Then the parents could be arrested, and I'll find out while you're talking. But things have so broken down morally. This is why we're in this spot. I think you and I agree on that, right? Here's the bill, by the way. Here it is. House bill. Democrats passed bill that allows state to seize children from their parents if they misgender and makes misgendering a discriminatory act. So if the parent doesn't go along with it, they're in trouble. And it affirms it will not prosecute the parent that goes and has their child's genitalia cut off. I mean, when you have this kind of moral breakdown, there's no way your society is going to survive, and certainly not as a union, right? There's going to finally be some states like Tennessee, Arkansas, Mississippi. There's going to be some of those states that say, we can't agree, and we're not doing this. That's what I believe.
Yeah, I mean, there needs to be some spark, right? There needs to be some issue that catches the zeitgeist. The problem with the articles you put up is that, 20 years ago, that would have been nationwide news and a whole lot of people would be outraged. And now it's just a Tuesday. Yep. It's like we see this stuff day in and day out. And it is a problem. And it goes beyond religion, in my opinion, because we've talked about how differently, for instance, evangelical Christians poll from Protestants. That's just one way of measuring it. But same book they're teaching out of, and yet mentally those humans poll very differently. Mm-hmm. And so there's an aspect of self-interest, there's an aspect of integrity that just can't be fixed. I think Trump is doing all of the right things to give America a chance, but it only begins to get us there, right? Like, our entire society was undermined by a collapse in, like you said, in morality, a de-churchification, right? But also in many other ways. So they increased the amount of credit available to people. They made, more competition for jobs. They made it more expensive for the middle class. A rise in single-family households, a rise in dual income households, right? As globalism concentrated wealth and power at the top. So all of this, and then every institution is undermined too. You have people going into debt for 20 years to go to a college that's going to teach them nothing of value and then propagandize at them for 4 years. Like, how can society exist with those kind of perverse incentives?
And upholding PLO type people like a boss that October 7th massacre was a legitimate resistance. That's not just the chairman of the Palestinian Authority. That's college professors. That's what this has been going on for a long time that they were teaching this. I think I saw a video today, Mark, from 2004. I think it was a 2004 video when let me see if I can find it real quick. When Fox News ran a piece on what was being taught on America's college campuses. And this was 20 years ago. The kids were saying our professors are, teaching, that's not it, guys, are teaching anti-Semitism. They're promoting these ideologies. And I mean, so this has been in the cooker for a while.
It all seems like there was some big grand plan. For decades, they've been squeezing the middle class, globalizing, concentrating wealth in just the biggest companies. A global multi-billion-dollar company has so many advantages now. That's basically crushed debt plate capitalism. And I think we don't have capitalism now. I think we have crony capitalism, and the money buys so much power in the Senate, in the House. And then you have again, both parties working together to cement control of an unelected beast in Washington, D.C. that has been optimized to milk taxpayers. So all that's happening. And then every institution is basically centralizing power in order to support this establishment, mainstream media, all the college professors, everything. And what are these colleges doing? They're milking the taxpayer too. And then they're coming out, if you look at Reddit politics right now, everybody's super stoked because 100% of economists are against Trump's tariff plan. Imagine that. Like, imagine these people who are funded largely by taxpayers shilling for basically shilling for the establishment against the interests of the middle class. And they need the middle class, like 18-year-olds, to go to college, right? And so it's just so unbelievably corrupt. And so, again, if Trump is able to right the economic ship, that makes things a little bit better. That takes a little bit of the pressure off. But we're still stuck in a situation where, like, the church I grew up in, the Methodist Church, is now essentially a progressive political action committee. Like, what do you do with that? How does it get fixed? Probably has to burn down. I don't know. Every single college that I would potentially send my kid to is just completely full of these people who can't separate real world from their luxury belief leftist cult. And it's across, we're talking the same thing about the companies too. It's like, okay, that's great. You fired your DEI department, but like everybody who knew how to do things is gone. And all you have left is all of the people that you hired off of Tumblr and Reddit. Like, all these Zoomers that don't know. So I don't know how it gets fixed, but I can tell you there's desire and demand. And I think this tariff situation really shows the new political coalition that is young, internet-focused people with families, people who have been squeezed, against people who have largely profited or done well under the system. And I hate to bring age into it. However, I bet you there's a pretty strong Venn diagram overlap of the people crying about their 401ks right now and people who are boomers. Think that those are potentially the Trump people. You know, I had two great boomers growing up. My dad was a Rush Limbaugh listener, but man, he loved Alan Greenspan and he loved the stock market. And the stock market is not the economy for pretty much everybody who's not a boomer. Like, that's the thing. You know what I mean? And you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. But I'll tell you, Trump approval took a little bit of a hit. It was 47% today with a 51% on disapprove, but I think it's starting to reverse. Last night's approval was 50%. Right direction dropped to 43, I think, with a 40% overnight. I think it's all just going to be a blip. But the 18 to 39-year-olds, again, they like Trump most, as measured by somewhat and strongly approve. They strongly approve of Trump least. They total approve of Trump most, and their right direction is almost 10 points higher than anybody else. And so the people in the 18 to 39-year-old age bracket, the ones that have to go, they walk to class through these riots on Columbia campus, that have to compete in this modern job market, who can't afford a house, who are trying to find, a long-term mate, maybe, and deal with just the societal wreckage that dating apps and all this other stuff have thrust upon. Those people approve of Trump. And the boomers, I think, the older and high net worth, affluent suburban liberals that have been fueling the Democrat Party, they're the core now. They're out there. They're the ones protesting. It's the same people that were on the National Mall in January of 2017 with those pink hats. And it's dwindling. It's going away. And you can say, oh, well, AOC is going to be the new voice of the party. She doesn't poll that well. The 18 to 39-year-olds are largely with Trump or just politically disconnected.
So if you had to guess today who will be the candidate in 2020, 2028? Who will it be?
Well, we did a really cool poll. It was funded by us, by Pablo Torre Finds Out, a podcast on Stephen A. Smith. And I've been begging to be able to do something like that because I think it's a really good idea to look at what an outsider does to Democrat poll numbers. Because I think internally there's like a Democrat civil war. They can't figure out the future of the party. Anybody who speaks up will get basically, proverbially drag out behind the woodshed. They did it to Chuck Schumer. And so it's a downward spiral for them. But the problem is, like, nobody within the Democrat confines can believably come out and say our party needs to reform. Like Gavin Newsom's trying to do it, and already he's got a contingent of trans people that are never going to let his campaign succeed. So we did Stephen A. Smith, and I can tell you we asked his favorability numbers. 44% of people said not sure. So that's pretty high. Like, people don't really know who he is. And his net favorability was high, because most people are like, oh, yeah, I guess I somewhat approve of him. And he's an entertainer. People like him. He's got some of the Donald Trump things going for him. And I'm not getting into any of his politics. We didn't really touch that. It's just like, well, how does he do? And he polled in a list among Democrats, Kamala Harris, 40% of Democrat support. Everybody else is like 12% or lower. Shapiro, who everybody's like, oh, he's a great moderate that can do well. Yeah, he doesn't poll that great. Stephen A. Smith was right there with him in a Democrat primary matchup. Kamala Harris, who is the front runner now, only beat Stephen A. Smith 45% to 24%, 21 points. Reminder, she just had a $3 billion publicity event like less than a year ago, right? And so he's only behind her 20 points in a Democrat primary matchup. And then we tested Smith versus AOC and Newsom, and Newsom was only ahead by 3 points. AOC was only ahead by 4 points. That's wild, because AOC's out there filling stadiums, with paid protests and stuff like that. And we also did a general matchup. This is a little bit of bad news for Republicans. J.D. Vance only beat Stephen A. Smith by 4 points.
Ooh, wow.
38 to 34. So this is a problem, is that J.D. Vance is not the new Donald Trump yet. And Donald Trump, in my numbers, has a lot of crossover voters that don't show up in most of the other pollsters that are doing online only. I think that's real. I think Donald Trump gets a lot of independents and Democrats out, even more than the exit polling says. And I don't think those people are going to be I don't think the Republicans can count on them to turn out necessarily yet for J.D. Vance in the same levels. And, so far
Mr.
out
Vance
from
might want to
2028.
start doing interviews, and he could start with taking us up on our multiple requests to interview him. So he might want to start coming out here and doing, because that's how Donald Trump introduced himself, television, Apprentice, and then a ton of interviews, and pretty much every podcast that wanted him, he was willing to go. I mean, I couldn't believe the podcasters that were getting President Trump during the campaign. Pretty much anybody. J.D. Vance better learn from that and start making himself more available. That's my opinion.
Well, J.D. Vance has a Republican Party problem that, in a way that Donald Trump didn't. So Donald Trump's trying to get the Republican Party to support him and enact his agenda right now. But as we've said to you, Donald Trump's agenda is more popular than he is.
Right.
Okay. And I think the reason Donald Trump won on that agenda is because he could believably say, like, no, I am an outsider. I don't need the money. I'm not going to sell out. People trusted him because he was on TV and built an emotional connection to people. And he was also like willing to tell the unvarnished truth in a way that other politicians just aren't. And, whatever you want to say about J.D. Vance right now, he feels like a Republican. Mm-hmm. He talks MAGA, but he feels like a Republican. He's a senator. Donald Trump wasn't a senator. J.D. Vance didn't have a TV show. You know what I'm saying? It's just different. And so it'll come back to, well, is it the same old Republicans? And can they get people out? And as we've seen from these special elections, and, obviously there's some fraud there. We talked about that. But the Republican Party is not MAGA. Like this was one of Donald Trump's big things. Decades he's been talking about these tariffs, and they broke ranks with him on it. This is, people have been waiting for this.
Yep. Well, this in our wrap up here, this is how Donald Trump talks, and this is why people like him.
Congratulations, Brian. And others. We have a couple of senators here. I just don't particularly like them, so I won't introduce. Over the course of this amazing season, the members of this team. I didn't think it was that big a deal, actually. Washington. Over the course.
I mean, would you have ever seen George H. or George W. or any of them talk like that? Or say, I just saw a video today about Barbara Bush was going on and on about how much she couldn't stand Donald Trump and the things he says. And she's passed away now, Barbara has. But it was just, he came and he broke the mold, the way you did things. And he's like, and he started talking like the average American talks about these people in Washington. And they just couldn't stomach it, that that he called Jeb weak, called her son weak, at the debates and all. She just could not believe there was a candidate running that would talk the way we do to the TV.
Yeah, and it cemented his popularity. And what was great is just watching everybody try and just clutch pearls and fix the problem the way they always have before. And it's like, why isn't this working?
Clutch pearls, that's a good one when we talk about Barbara Bush. Remember her always wearing her pearls?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's like, that's what they do. Oh, I can't believe he said that. And they'll run like, 24/7 news cycle on it. I'm sorry, Peggy Noonan, your column just doesn't work. Like, people get Trump in a way that you just can't. Like, it broke a lot of people's brains.
She stopped being interesting 25 years ago.
Yeah. And then Donald Trump just literally destroyed her. Like, literally destroyed this.
I mean, some of these people, I didn't even know they were still living. It's like when you go to Branson. Yeah. You go to Branson and you're like, wait a minute, he's alive? Yeah, he's got a show in Branson. I thought he was dead. No, he's not dead. He's in Branson. That's like Peggy Noonan. Is she still alive? She's so irrelevant, right?
Yeah. I guess. I don't know. I saw she wrote something like a week or two ago. I was like, no, I'm not playing along.
No, so
but
she's irrelevant. You didn't even read her.
No, I mean, I did a lot like years ago.
Right, exactly, but not now. Right.
Yeah, no.
All right, so in closing.
But yeah, with Vance, he doesn't have it, you know? It's like you call Grace Chung a mouth-breathing imbecile. It just hits different. It doesn't have like the wink that Trump insults have. And like, that's
how about
a
Eric
problem.
Trump? You see anything that shows us Eric Trump or Donald Trump Jr.?
Oh, we haven't polled on those. I don't know. I don't know if they're in for the fight that it would be, but who knows? Maybe it's a dynasty. Who knows? But 38%, like, that's pretty good. JD Vance was getting 67% of the Republican vote, and Stephen A. Smith was only getting 55% of the Democrat vote.
And I barely know who he is. I barely know who he is. He's a black gentleman on ESPN, right?
Yep.
That's about all
talks
I
about
know.
sports. Yeah, that's about all I knew too. He's been talking about the Democrat Party needing reform, and very few people are, and so he's getting attention because of that. He's going on like The View and stuff talking about these things, and it's true. They need to back off the brink. All the voters all agree with that. They want the party to moderate. And they haven't, and they can't. And I think it's because they're just so invested in all the tactics and techniques they've been using for decades in order to concentrate power.
Yep.
Maybe they're worried about people flipping. I don't know. Like,
all right,
who knows where it's going to go?
Well, wherever it goes, you'll be tracking it because that's what you do at Rasmussen. Give all your socials and website and everything, Mark.
We stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9:00 Eastern, usually. Rasmussen_poll on Twitter, Honest Pollster on Twitter, Rasmussen_poll on YouTube, and Rasmussen Reports at Rumble. And
he'll also be a keynote speaker at our national conference coming up October 3rd and 4th in the Collierville, Tennessee area outside of Memphis. And he'll be there along with a lot of other great folks you're going to want to meet and hear and speak in person. We only have 350 seats and well over 100 of them already gone. So get your tickets while they last, worldviewstore.com. Mark, as always, thank you for your time.
Yeah, great to be here.
Mark Mitchell checking in tonight, folks. Follow him on all the socials and on their website as well. All right, folks, 1 week from tonight, we will be in Waukesha outside of Milwaukee for our first Worldview rally that we've held in 7 years. We have over 1,000 people registered, and you can register. It's free, and you can still register, okay, at worldviewtube.com/events, worldviewtube.com/events. Yep, we have security. Some of you say, are you guys going to have security there? Yeah, we sure are. So come on and join us. And if you can't be there, pray for us. Pray for safety and travel for everybody else that's coming there. A great event. The health of the speakers to stay in good voice and good health. Okay? Pray for us, will you? If you can't be there. Now, if you can't be there in person, but you'd like to watch it live, we will be live streaming it if you're a member of the Vault. And you can join the Vault. But first of all, let me just reiterate. If you want to be there, you need to register so we put out enough chairs. Okay, we got over 1,000 registered right now. You can get your tickets for free at worldviewtube.com/events. Register every person singly. You can use the same email address, but keep popping in their names as you register them so we can count them as a chair. Okay, worldviewtube.com/events. Now, if you'd like to live stream it from the comfort of your home, all you got to do is join our Vault, worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. Join, very nominal fee, gets you also access to our 35-year library, my books, ebooks, radio shows, TV shows, conference DVDs, and more. Worldviewtube.com/events, worldviewtube.com/vault, and you'll be able to live stream the event 1 week from tonight. Worldviewtube.com/vault.